I search for 3 days and there's 15 videographers. I want you. And that's a good feeling because I'm doing what I want to do and the couples want me versus, yeah, this looks nice and let's just go with that.
And Michael, what episode is this?
Episode 34.
Episode 34 of the Real Talk Podcast. It's your host, Joey.
And Thomas.
And if you like what you're hearing, please like, subscribe, and comment down below.
What's going on, buddy?
You know.
Been a little bit.
Been a little bit, but I think I'm ready.
You went to, where'd you go? Key West?
I went to Key West.
Yeah, you had a wedding.
I had a wedding. I was in the wedding.
Wedding.
Yeah, I did the best man speech.
I'm in a wedding this summer, too.
Oh, I'm excited for that one.
I'm killing it.
We're doing.
The universe knows.
Oh, we also got to cover Bridgewater Lifestyle.
Bridgewater Lifestyle.
Yeah, buddy.
Bridgewater Lifestyle.
Tate made an appearance on there.
Tate made an appearance. Hopefully, Tate's going to get his own cover.
Yeah, hopefully next month. We're crossing our fingers. We had a lot of votes. I know we did. We had to have.
Yes, sir. But, my brother, who we got on today?
Today, we have Matt Alt, legendary wedding filmmaker, travels the world shooting weddings, and is one of the best wedding filmmakers that I know. Everybody welcome Matt Alt.
Let's do it. What's going on, man? I like the tattoo.
Yeah, just got it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Been getting tatted recently. It's just a panther with dagger going through its head. Very traditional.
What'd you think of your first hat?
It was an experience for sure. Just getting tatted. You're tatted up all over your arm.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I stopped giving a fuck after I realized I'm not going back to the corporate world.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm thinking about getting a full sleeve now and all that stuff, yeah.
So I wanted to bring Matt Alt on because he has like an eye for weddings, right? Like pretty much that's pretty much all you not all you shoot, but like that's pretty much primarily what you shoot, right?
Yeah, the majority.
And how did you get into it like at first? Did you always know you wanted to shoot weddings or like did you shoot stuff before that?
Yeah, so with weddings, I think you were a part of it, possibly with Enchanted Celebrations back.
Oh, we celebrate. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I think that's like the first gig and like just was like, oh, $75 an hour. Like that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And then you realize that you're only working once a week and $75 an hour isn't enough.
Yeah.
So
not once a week.
No, not at all. So, that's how I got into it. Started at Rutgers and just was doing like sports media stuff for like athletics and stuff. And then created my own LLC, started doing weddings and just really threw myself into working for other studios at first. And then, did so much of that and then eventually built my own business to, do it for myself.
Do you think working for the studios helps wedding filmmakers at first or like people are getting their foot in their door?
Yeah, I think it's good to kind of see that spectrum of it just because, it's completely different than running your own business and you get used to shooting and that's all it is, right? Shooting, being on time and just like getting the flow of like the wedding day. But it's one of those things that, I know a lot of people that still just work for studios and it's great. But there's no business side of it. There's no really creative outlet. They kind of want the same exact things. They just want it to be clean and good, right? Mm-hmm. So after a while, what happened to me is I lost all my creativity because I felt like I was just a robot doing the same thing for everybody. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're doing 2 to 3 a weekend, it just got very monotonous. Yeah. So, yeah.
Was it like coming from like shooting sports at Rutgers? Like, is there things from that you were able to like carry over? Did you feel like I'm just in new waters and
it was similar just because like it's very run and gun, especially with some of the sports we were doing. It was very spontaneous. It wasn't like live broadcasts of the Rutgers football games. It was like, all right, let's create a video of a live event at like, the Big Chill or something like that Rutgers has. So it was really just like being on the go. And I'd say like weddings for the most part, it's just run and gun the whole time. Where it's like, this is a beautiful setup here. And you have time to like make it what it is. Weddings, you can't do that really. Maybe for the toast you can do that, but you go into like bride prep and there's like stuff around the room. You got to move the chairs around. Yeah, it's you got to think on your feet.
Yeah, like weddings, you can have like all the information in the world, but as soon as you walk into that bridal suite, like just,
you don't know what you're gonna get.
The window.
You really don't know what you're gonna get. So it's like going from to shoot weddings to anything that's like more, with a team and like production is comes off very easy. Yeah. Where I feel like if I went the other way around, it would be much harder because, you know, I'm the sound guy for a wedding. I'm the lighting guy too, unless we have a team. Like sometimes there is another videographer, but for the most part, it's like you're the sound guy, you're the lighting guy. You're like kind of set design. If something's in the background, you want to move it, and you still have to get the right frame in, make the bride look good. So it's a lot of work, especially if it's solo. So yeah, it's just one of those things I got really good at, and I solo shoot most of the weddings too. So it's
shout out solo wedding videography.
Yeah,
that's not easy.
Break your back.
Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy. I just started bringing assistants on just to like collect audio after the ceremony and stuff. But I think like having a team is good. It's just a matter of if the person has the budget or not.
Yeah,
because, you know, bringing somebody else on, you got to factor that in. So it definitely helps. I started to notice it helps, but, you know, most of my films are solo shot.
Damn.
Yeah.
Why the solo shooting, and how do you make that work throughout the day? Because there is so much to do, right?
Yeah.
Whether carrying your gear, plugging in audio, what things and like what tips do you have for solo wedding shooters?
Sure. Yeah, there's so many tips. Honestly, for any of the formalities, you got to play it safe. You know, you can't be as creative. You got to get the bride walking down the aisle. You don't want to try to like do something crazy where if you miss it, then you're done. Like you can't do another wedding. Like that's like the most important moment of their life, right? So it's like playing it safe. And then if you are just starting out, just play it safe the whole entire day. Just because you can't redo it and you're solo. So that's like the hardest thing really, is just trying to figure out your style and like what you like to shoot when you can't mess up anything. Where it's like if you're on set, you could be like, okay, take two. Weddings, there's a timeline for everybody and you got to work with other vendors, so like the photographer too. So if you're like, oh wait, let me get this, you're also cut it into the other vendor. So it's like you really have to be able to nail it right away and be time efficient.
How important do you feel like it is to be on like the same page as the photographers? Because I know for us, like there's days we show up to weddings and like you're on the same page, and then like
the photographer will step in your shot.
Yeah, they just go into their own zone of things.
It's important. Like honestly, like I have like some like recommendations when couples like reach out and stuff. But I found that since I'm always kind of working with different photographers, is a lot of my couples since like COVID have been finding photographers that kind of match my style. They're like, oh, I think you guys would work well together, which is awesome. It's like they're like natural light, a little bit of mood, and like just like more about like candidness versus like getting you know, a photographer that's like, you know, maybe superposed the whole time and like, you know, has this whole thing. A lot of the times actually my couples have been doing it for me is like matching up with a photographer that kind of, you know, it fits my style.
That's awesome.
Which is cool. But yeah, I think some couples too, they also want that photo video team, but it's also harder to find like the best of each.
Exactly.
Because like there's all these studios, right? They do photo and then it's like a video add-on, especially the bigger studios. So it's like to find somebody that's really good at video, they probably have their own company, where with photo, they probably have their own company too. So it's like this mix for the couples that they have to make. And a lot of it too is like, you know, being able for the couple at least to trust you as a vendor to be like, okay, I work with them. So what I tell them is like, I go off the photographer's timeline.
And early in the earlier days, like when shooting through studios, how did you get the experience to be like, all right, I'm confident to go on my own? Or like, can you talk about like the early days, like in the studio?
Yeah. So I guess like in the studio is just, you just get thrown into it. It's literally like some studios I would have 3 in a weekend, which is crazy. I'll never do 3 again. It's way too much. But you know, you just get thrown into it. Like you might even get a timeline on a Wednesday. I feel like photo is more hands-on with like calling the couple. Video, it's like you kind of just show up as a freelancer.
That's what I always say. It's like, well, you know, we'll Zoom with the couple and they'll give us like the photographer's timeline. And that's kind of what you go off.
Just go off of it.
Because like photography, they like
it takes
like
more time.
Couples definitely want more like specific photos, and like they see things in magazines. Or like, I feel like a lot of times they're going off of like the structure that they know they want to do. So like videographers, like, yeah, there's things I need in one, but I can really just kind of work around them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like just going off their timeline or just like following like the wedding planner's timeline just makes it easier. And couples like that because then, you know, we're not, you know, in competition of what's what. And, you know, with the photographer's timeline, they're going to have a certain shot list that they got to get, like bridal party combinations, family combinations. Whereas video, it's like we don't really have a shot list. It's like, you know, as you see with like the studios, it's like they want that cheering shot. They want like a couple family shots. So video doesn't have a shot list. The most I've ever heard was like, you know, we have a special first dance. Can you get that? You know, there's no shot list really, or like, oh, we're doing an exit or something like that. But there's no like request really. This is from the freelancer side. For my own company, it's a little bit different. But, you know, going back in the day, like, I think it's just like really just whatever was on the studio's website, replicating that and just like doing exactly that. Where versus when you have your own company, you could really start experimenting with like different types of styles and stuff, where if you're working for somebody else and they get something else and they give it to their editor and say it's like mid-year, they'll be like, what is this? You know, because they're not used to it. They're used to, okay, if there isn't a bridal party, where's the bridal party shots? And their editor will, like, the studio will call you and be like, where's these shots? So they expect the same exact thing. So I guess like just starting off as like solo for freelancers, it's just like, you know, do what's on their website already and don't try to reinvent the wheel, because I don't think that's what they're looking for.
It's probably good because like you learn somewhat of like a blueprint of like
safety shots.
Like you learn the safety shots. Like that's what I learned from Joe. It was like, all right, he had a blueprint of how he filmed stuff, but then now when I go out, it's like, all right, I know what needs to be got, and then I know what like I can kind of spend more time being more creative. And honestly, it depends on like your location. I mean, you could be like just in a, I mean, we've been in some crazy places before to where like there's no scenery, there's nothing.
He's got to like shoot it. You know?
Exactly.
I want to talk about like your first wedding. Do you remember your first wedding?
Yeah, it was Westmount Country Club. I actually shot everything for the most part on a 50. And when I look back at that footage, I was like, this is really good, because like, now I shoot only on primes. Like I don't use zooms, but like I feel like that was kind of risky to do, because, you know, as starting out, you should probably use a zoom because you don't know exactly where to be, and you don't know the room sizes. You've never been to that venue. But yeah, I feel like you could shoot a whole day on 50 and make it work. It was at the Westmount. I don't remember what the couple really looked like. It was for some studio, and like...
Were you lead shooting or were you second shooting?
I was just solo shooting.
They just put you on, yeah. Not shooting a wedding ever before?
No. Yeah.
Did you know like the general rundown of how a wedding worked at all, or you just kind of just went there,
just looked at the website,
roll with the punches?
You know what? Back in the day, there used to be, well, it's still there, but like with Craig Adams and like wedding film school, of just like how to film a wedding. That was like the blueprint for everybody, I feel like.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just watching those videos, that's been back when sliders were a thing, and like no like electronic gimbals were really even around. It was just literally, it was completely.
I remember that.
You know, you had to do a slide-in shot for the details, and like, nobody does that anymore. Maybe like a slide-in time-lapse on a motorized slider now could be cool. But like nobody does that. And like I remember having to have like a slider on top of my tripod.
Like tipping over. The rat rails.
It was absolutely crazy. Like just like thinking about like what it's been. Now I shoot most of my weddings for formalities with tripods, but like everything else handheld. So it's like completely switched that mindset of just like needing to do what everyone else is doing. I used to be like gimbal for studios, and then I was like monopod for my own company. And then I started to do some destination weddings, and I didn't want to like pack a lot of tripods and stuff. So I started to shoot everything handheld. That's how I kind of got into like the handheld look. And like, you know, cameras have amazing stabilization now. But it's really interesting just being that free, being handheld and not having to think, especially when you're like in a city or environment of like, I need this huge gimbal. Completely changed the way I look at it, just like filming in general.
Damn.
But just going handheld,
Do you think a lot of the videographers focus too much on the gear now?
Yeah, way too much.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be all kind of outdated. There's always going to be something new that comes out. Like even with like drone footage, like I have like this one film I think I did in like early 2019. It was like when the Mavic Mini came out, just shot 1080. But I was shooting in like Cali, and like so many people said, oh, this footage looks insane. It was just the right light in. It was 1080p. And like it looks absolutely sick, the drone footage. And it's like now there's like these drones that are like $5,000 that do like ProRes RAW, and like honestly, you wouldn't tell much of a difference because it's just like the right lighting and stuff. So I think it's more important to focus on lighting, composition, and all that stuff.
And sound.
Yeah, sound is super important.
Can you touch on like why you strictly shoot on primes? Like for our viewers, we really don't touch into too much of like the
technical
behind the scenes of like cameras that people are using and like their lenses and why they're using them. Like we know obviously the benefit of using prime lenses, but can you explain like why you decided to make that shift?
Yeah. I think the main reason is because you actually don't have to think as much. So like most people think, oh, because I use a zoom, you know, I'm more flexible. But after you've been in enough situations, the only times where I really have to change my primes around is if it's a super short like aisle with a bride coming down. Like then I probably wouldn't use a longer prime lens. I'd probably like shoot on a 50 or something like that. But the thing with a prime is you get a consistent look throughout all your films, where if you're shooting 24, like there's nothing wrong with this too. I think that new Canon 24-70, it's like f2. So many people rock it. It's like the biggest lens.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And it's like, it gives you like that depth of field and it looks really good. But the thing is that, you know, you might get a little bit lazy with your shots.
Yeah.
That's what starts to happen when you use zooms. Unless you're going to the same focal lengths, but like sometimes it's just, you know, you're running gun, you go like that. So instead of me moving forward or back, I just use my feet. So if I'm like on a 85, I'll just move back more. And what you start to look for different things in video, with primes, like you start to notice, say you're shooting like tight, like on a, you know, 55 or 85, you start to notice, I don't have to get everything perfectly in the frame to tell the story, because video, you could mesh up clips. Like you get like her kind of looking down and just her eyes, and then you could use your feet and move back and kind of get like, you know, like a chest up shot. Where if you were to use just like a zoom lens, like you might not think about those tight shots. So I think it gives you a different look. And like, you know, I get requests from couples say they're like, you know, it just feels different. Your films feel different. It's just because I'm shooting on one prime. There's another person in the industry. Her name is Fiore Film. She's actually in Jersey, and she shoots like all different primes, but like she sticks to that, and she's on a tripod. But she's very strict to it. And her shots and composition, like everyone would say, it's like one of the best. It's just because she's just looking for those shots. So it's like it starts to become a certain style, versus like, you know, if you shoot zooms, there's nothing wrong with it, but like I just feel like it doesn't give you that unique look.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something. I mean, I remember looking over some like, I think it was just like dancing stuff that you filmed.
Yeah,
and I was like, you're definitely not shooting on 24-70 right there. You can just tell, like, it's like how I look at it is like, instead of a lens trying to work within 24-70, it just has one objective. It's just
clean
50. Like I just got to get 35, or it's a 50 or 85. It's like it has one task and it's just focused on doing that task.
I feel like finding your primes is like very important too. Like I started to shoot on Leica a little bit, and I use the Q2, and it's like my wide lens, and I have like a camera trap I put it on to my side. And it's like, since I shoot a lot of like, you know, 55, 85 for like my like beauty shots and stuff, and like just reaction shots and just getting people candidly, that 28 to have is another prime. It just gives me that wide look, and I think it stops down to like 1.7, and it's like butter. So it's like to have the contrast when I need it for a solo shooter, to like just have a wide on my hip to just get it real quick to show the background. Like the first time I went to Italy, you know, I was in Florence, I was in the Dolomites. I'm like, most of my films, I use an 85 and occasionally establish a shot with a drone shot. I'm like, I can't do this in Florence. Like, you can't shoot everything on 85. You wouldn't know you're in Florence, right? And it, like, unless you're like rack and focus between like, you know, a cathedral and a couple. Like I did that and it looks fine, but like sometimes you do need a wide shot to show where it is. So it kind of like broke my rules a little bit and got me into shooting a couple wide shots. Yeah, it was really interesting.
I want to touch base on what made you make the jump from shooting all studio work to doing your own business, and like what triggered you to be like, all right, I'm done with this?
COVID switched everything. I feel like I really kind of was going into it in 2018 part-time for my own company. And then 2019 was good. And then 2020 happened. And it was like, I was still like kind of like halfway there. What happened, and it's not to knock any studio, but what happened is there were so many schedules. And if you're a freelancer, you kind of commit to a date, like whatever, verbally. And what happened is all the dates started to get rescheduled. And the thing is I would already be booked for another date. So there's just no money to come in because the studio would still have the deposit, but I wouldn't get any money. So I'm like, I got to work for myself because I'm relying on all these studios for everything. And there's no deposit for committing for a date. You only get paid in the wedding industry if you show up, if you're a freelancer. That you don't get paid before that. So that was the biggest struggle is, you know, these studios were fine, you know, because they have deposits and, you know, it's not that they were like thriving or whatever, but like since they have a team of like 5 to 6 people, they could just put another freelancer if I'm double booked.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't rely on them anymore. So that's what really made the push. There was like countless hours of just like redesigning my website, like during COVID, being like, you know, I need to just make money again. Like I know this isn't going to last forever. Nobody knew with the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
It was like the wedding industry was kind of destroyed. So it really pushed me. COVID was the best thing to happen to me, even though that year was really bad.
Yeah.
Like 2020, even 2021, it started to come back a little bit, but like there were still restrictions. But like the fact that I was relying on another person for dates, and it's not that they took me off it. The couples would literally cancel because they're like, we can't have a wedding.
Yeah.
And, you know, the studio would just reschedule it. So it really pushed me to like redefine my business and be like, okay, well, if I start booking more for my own company and try to do this full time, then, you know, I'll be able to keep the deposits even if we do reschedule. So at least I'll have some income coming through. And that was the biggest thing is like just being like, I need to work for myself just because, you know, unfortunately the government didn't let you work. Like everybody was remote working. I'm not sure what you guys did, maybe some of the remote stuff, but it was really hard.
Yeah.
You know, so that's really what pushed me is like the COVID thing is like, I can't rely on anyone else.
And how did you get like your first couples, right? Because like I feel like the studios, they feed you work.
Yeah.
But getting your own couples and your own clients is a whole different beast.
Sure. Yeah, actually a lot through networking. Photographers, wedding planners, you know, some venues started to refer me and stuff. I feel like word of mouth is huge in the industry, especially like photographers, since, you know, a couple usually they get their venue, they get their photographer, and sometimes videographers last, sometimes it's not, but a lot of the time it is.
Yeah.
So it's like photographers, honestly, just like going back to like, how do you work well with a photographer? It's like literally like helping them out, follow in their timeline, make sure they need their shots, because connections are everything. Like not even in weddings, just everything. Connections are everything. I haven't used a resume. I don't use my Rutgers degree going back there, like nothing. It's all about connections. And then as of recently, like Instagram, a little bit of marketing through there, where it's just like geotagging like venues or spots and just like, you know, tagging all the vendors and having like, you know, if a makeup artist did the makeup, tagging them and then them reposting on the story. It's like there's so many, you know, leads that can come through by just tagging other vendors. And if like it's a florist and you did really pretty work, and in the sneak preview or video that you created, you tag the florist and they repost it, another client could be following the florist and find you through that. So it's like really just, I don't even think you need to spend too much money. Like there's a couple websites where it's like I pay for it because it aligns with the couples I want to like be filming and stuff. But like the Wedding Wire and the Knot like weren't like my client base at all. And so I had to like re-establish that, because I feel like for a lot of bigger studios, it's not that they rely on, you know, with the Wedding Wire or the Knot, but it's a very general flow of clients.
There's a lot of leads that come in.
Yeah, but it's like, I feel like for the price point that I was trying to hit and the couples and weddings I want to do, it's like I was getting 0 bookings through it. So I had to like rethink of like just like relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like when people try to book through the Knot or the Wire, they're always looking at the cheapest price.
Yeah, they probably have 20 tabs open, you know, and all that stuff. And it's like, for me, I'm getting people where it's like, you know, they're like, yeah, I searched for 3 days and there's 15 videographers and like I want you. So it's like going back to the whole style choice of like being super picky of how you film things and just like thinking outside the box, I think is huge. Because I get that a lot with couples that are like, yeah, you're 100% it. And that's a good feeling because I'm doing what I want to do and the couples want me versus just like, yeah, this looks nice and let's just go with that.
What do you feel like the couples are gravitating towards? Like, is it your look, the way you work with couples?
It's a very minimalistic approach. And it's like, I try to really just give you like that cinematic feel without making it too much of a production. So it's like all the time at weddings, like, I have some tripods and stuff. I'm going handheld. My camera looks smaller, especially that baby Leica, than these photographers. So like during the day, people are like, can you take a photo of me? I'm like, I'm video. Yeah. So it's like they like that approach. That's one thing. Just like this simplistic thing where I'm like, I focus on the candid moments and the people. I feel like that's a huge selling point versus being like, we got to make it a production. There's people that do want the production and there's other people that will do that. But for me, it's like trying to give you that candid, just real experience versus, trying to stage everything. Because I noticed with like, corporate videography and stuff where it's like kind of set design, yeah, you could do that. And it's just like, you'll have somebody that's on script and you have people with lighting and stuff. With weddings, you're moving around so much that I just found it really hard to do it as a solo videographer. And most of the time, some couples want it where it's like super, orchestrated and they want like these really nice shots, but a lot of times they just want to get married.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't know how to pose and they don't know how to do that. So that's a huge selling point. And then obviously like the work on top of that. But like that's how I try to get people in, is just like really just like the style choice of I'm candid, minimalistic, and like I will go off your photographer's timeline. It's just another check mark because it's they got to do so many vendors. They need a band, they need a photographer, the venue. And a lot of times couples are doing it all at once. So it's like all this back and forth stuff. It's just like on the business side of it, just like looking at like, I got married last year too. I'm like, if I had to go back and forth all this time and like, with this videographer and all this planning and stuff, it's like, it's too much for a lot of couples. They just don't want to deal with that.
I know the day itself is just like
hectic.
It's hectic.
It's a lot. There's times where like we've shot weddings and I'm like, it doesn't even look like anyone's enjoying themselves anymore.
Oh yeah, because even you see that with couples, and I'm like, for me, if I see a couple kind of stressed out and they're doing too much like portrait stuff, like I'll just step back. I'm like, we'll get it during sunset or something. Yeah. Where the light's better. I'm like not too crazy about it because with photo you need set shots in general because you have to deliver a gallery and stuff. With video, there's the in-between moments where you can get them just walking together and it's not even a portrait session, but it looks candid because they're enjoying themselves. So it's like, I need at least a little time with the couple, but like if I see it, like I'm like, where they're stressed out or it's like it's too hot out, I'm not going to force you to be out there because it's your wedding day. Now I'm trying to change something. So that's a huge selling point and people really love that. Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're there to make the couple happy. You know what I mean? If they don't want it to shoot, they don't want to shoot. I feel like sometimes photographers force it. They're like, all right, now we got to go sunset. Now we got to go outside at nighttime. And
it goes back to what we talked about when you first start, how you get into that routine. And that's actually really bad, in my opinion, is like just doing the same things. Like, oh, I have to get this walk-in shot with the gimbal. Like, or it's I have to get during prep, like the bride touching her dress. Like, I will never do that because they don't want to do it. And it's not something they would do on their wedding day. They're not going up to their dress and looking at it to this, like that one, that one shot. Yeah. Like I can't stand it. They don't want to do it. But it's like, it's part of their shot list because that's what most videographers are taught what to do. Instead, I'm like, let's just get you candidly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you're looking for those candid moments, you might get a shot that's super candid of just like the bride, like, getting the dress off the hanger, and it looks 100 times better because it's something she wanted to do. But if you're too focused on scripted shots, you forget about everything else. You're kind of like handcuffed to everything else.
Like for us, like we definitely do get those type of shots at times. And like you can definitely tell when like you're like, let's go up to the dress, touch it, and
you feel it,
and they're almost just like,
you could feel the awkwardness.
Yeah, they're like, how do I do this? And I'm like, you do it how you would do it.
Yeah,
but it's like understandable. Like most of like, say if we're a 2-person crew, like I'll go with like the groom.
Yeah,
and I'm always like, introduce myself
Sure.
and simplify this whole thing down to where like he's not worried about, oh my God, the physics. Because it's always the photographer who's gonna, in my opinion, bring the most stress to the couple, especially the most times the groom. Like the groom really just wants to get married and get to the reception.
Doesn't give a shit at all.
Part of it.
5 minutes.
So I'm like literally like, listen, the photographer's gonna do what he does with you. I'm just gonna ask for like a little moment in there, but I'm like, for the most part, I'm just a fly on the wall, just grabbing all those moments.
I see like too much that videographers try to shoot like photographers. That's what it's like kind of my secret too, of like that you see them, like you guys shoot weddings and it's like you follow them around like puppy dogs, and it's like it's completely fine to do that, but you know, when the bridal party is doing those shots, they're not looking at the camera. So it looks very like staged, you know, those shots, because it's staged for photo. And then there's a flash going off too. It's like, you just look like you're like the B team. Like that's just what the footage looks like.
And I feel too like, I don't know if this is just me, but like, do you ever feel like the couple, like maybe through like studio work, the couple doesn't feel like you're working as hard because you're not directing as much? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I guess with studio work, they might expect it, you know, because they're like, oh, we got to get like this dramatic. It depends on the couples. Like, you know, if you're at a venue that's like very, you know, ballroom-esque, and like some of those brides expect like those sweeping dramatic, everything dramatic shots. So it's like, you just have to do that based off what the studio does. But then, you know, as I freelance for other people, and like, there's studios that are like, no, don't like use the gimbal, don't do any of that stuff, and it's like kind of more of my style and stuff. And you know, I guess it just depends on the couples, because I've done the very like Jersey weddings, I'd say, just for the word of it, and like very ballroom-esque chandelier, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like I feel like it's more they expect it because it's what's on their website. And then like, you know, like even doing weddings in Italy, they don't expect any of that. It's just like getting them like in the moment, and just like being a fly on the wall, and just like getting how it actually was versus trying to make something and direct it. Like for me, for directing, it's like walk here or stand here or look at each other, because that looks natural all the time. All the time. So there's a tiny bit of directing, but it's not like, you know, place your hand here and then look into her eyes, and you know, because they don't really know how to do that. Like, it's just going to feel weird because they're like, am I doing this right? And if you hear that, then it's probably going to look weird. You know what I mean? So for me, it's just more like, you know, everyone could walk together, everyone could look at each other, and it's going to look more natural. So it's really just that approach versus, you know, try to really direct it. And there's people that direct it, it looks amazing. But the thing is, the couple knows that they're signing up for that. It's going to be a production. The bridal party's in on it. That's how all their friends are. They want this directed thing where it's like this hype video. And that's cool too. You know, there's people that do, like Fire and Ice does it. And they're like worldwide, and they absolutely crush it. If you saw one of their videos, you're like, this is crazy, but it's a production. It's like the guy, like the videographer is directing, and he's getting everybody hyped, and it's like this huge thing. But, you know, again, when you're solo shooting and, you know, the couple didn't sign up for that, you can't do that.
Definitely. So, I mean, the couple definitely, like, I mean, there's some teams out there that are pulling up to a wedding, 5-10 people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, those couples know exactly what, like, they want a movie, basically.
Have you ever seen the guy with the easy rig? With the easy rig at the weddings? Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
It's too much, dude.
I'm going to name drop Justin Porter Media. He has that big...
Yeah, that's it.
He's just in Jersey. I was just hanging out with him. Yeah, so it's like a completely different, you know, vibe of what you're trying to go for. And the couples, they want that. They want it where it's like that huge production and stuff.
They want to flex on everyone.
They know what the crew's gonna be like. They probably saw that and was like, oh,
that TikTok guy.
Love to have.
Oh, and it's awesome. It's like the energy and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of like, you know what you're signing up for. So it's like there's so many different. I was just thinking about this too. There's so many different markets in the wedding industry of like what you could try to hit. Like I started to do more black and white work with like shooting with like monochrome only cameras. And now I'm getting brides that want editorial look. That's what they call it. And I really love shooting black and white. So it's like going into like just straight black and white. Now I'm getting couples that are more into fashion and just have a different, not even like fashion, but they just know their vision for the wedding day versus of just like, not that, weddings can be generic because if you do so many, you start to see it, but it's like they tell me their vision and they're like, everything matches, like their photographer matches me just because I'm shooting a certain way. So I feel like whatever you put out there is what you're going to attract.
Do you have any tips on couples for when they pick wedding videographers?
See who's actually going to be filming your wedding. If it's a smaller company, like my company, like I'm going to be the one at your wedding day. Yeah. Bigger studios, you never know. It's kind of like, because it's a lot of freelancers. And the stuff that's on their website, it could be outdated, and then you're just the new guy they hired because they triple booked that weekend, and it's crazy. And a lot of couples don't know this. It's like who's going to be doing your edits too. A lot of studios, they have to do X amount of weddings to get where they want to be. So it's like really just knowing who your videographer is, and it's like, it's going to take some time for the couple to like kind of vet that. But just like really trying to figure out who's filming my wedding and what their style is too. I feel like it's super important. Like we just mentioned, is it more staged? Is it more posed? Is it more candid? And I think those questions would really help dictate kind of how your wedding day will be. Just like really vetting your people and just like seeing, reviews, go to their Instagram and see who tagged them in posts and who they work with. Like, even like anyone can write a review, but like tags from different vendors and stuff, and people being, you got to see and look at comments under their like posts and stuff and see that it's actual couples that are looking, oh my God, I love your work, or the couples are resharing their work, because those are the real reviews, in my opinion.
Damn. Is there anything you learned from the studios, business-wise, that you kind of carried onto your business?
That's a good question. Trying to think, because it's a completely different model. Because a lot of the studios, they're doing, I say at the minimum, around 50 weddings a year.
Minimum.
Yeah. Like very minimum. And your prices still have to be higher. And I'm right around 25. I'm trying to get it down a little bit lower. But 25 is like a sweet spot right now. So it's like a completely different business model. Like for me, and then there's even like the people that are doing 10 weddings a year that are charging like $8,000 to $12,000 plus, like, that's a completely different business model too of like what you have to look at. So like, I feel like the studios that are doing a lot quantity, it's like they need like the venues to be reaching out to them, and it's like a lot of it's like referral based, based off like couples that they already did and like bridesmaids that were friends of them. For me, it still has that referral base of like the inside. I feel like the inside network is important because you start to see past brides friends that start to book you too if you do a good job. So it's just a completely different business model versus like I don't know if things really correlate too much. I guess of just like breaking down how you sell to people, but I never really asked them about how they sell or their pricing. Like one thing you could do is like reach out to somebody and
pretend to be
somebody's your competition. I'm sure like every industry does it. So that's one way of doing it. But I think the most important thing is customer experience, because it's like you literally have to be perfect on the wedding day. So it's like making sure everything's on time, making sure you respond within 24 hours, and just really give them the kind of white glove experience. And as you go up in price, it's really, you just have to be perfect. So it's like any type of like thing that they need or just like recommendations, it's like they expect at that price point for you to like have those referrals, and like you just know what they do. They hire you, they trust you to do your job, and that's it. So at least that's like kind of like where I'm at with like the price bracket, where it's like, I don't know, if you're doing quantity with studios, it's like, I think it's just like making sure quality control is perfect, because they're doing so much. And it's like, I've seen studios where it's like, day of, it's just like they're scrambling to get somebody. So it's just like, let's just get it clean and get it done. It's just because they're doing so much. It's hard to keep track. So the one thing I did realize is just because you're doing more weddings doesn't mean you're making more money, because then you got to open up a studio, then you got to start to pay an employee, and then you got to pay workers comp. So it's like the more people you involved, it doesn't mean you're making more money.
Yeah.
I think that's like something I really took from like bigger people too, because they actually told me when they were small, they were like, yeah, I was actually making more money. But now it's like they have like this like well-oiled machine where people like shoot for them and stuff. And yeah, it's more passive, but it's also more stress. And it's like there's so much more to make that go right. And then like one little hiccup in this industry could be it.
And I feel like when you're like solo shooting, you hire a small studio, you know that their heart's going to be in it, right? If you hire a huge studio, they could give a fuck if one wedding, you know what I mean, goes astray.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah. So it's like, for me, I get to know my couples a little bit more. You know, not everyone's for that, like where they want to get to know their people. But I feel like for something that you're going to have longer than your first house, for like your wedding video, you'll have forever. You're going to have it longer than, you know, your car, like all that stuff. Like you're going to have that forever, like that file. It's like something you shouldn't just like second guess or like leave up to chance. I've seen people do it.
Regret it.
They regret it. Yeah. Because it's, you know, back to like how I shoot and stuff. It's like I have to be perfect and I can't redo the bride coming down the aisle. Just how like, you know, if you go with somebody you don't really know and it's just like, oh, we're on a budget, you know, chances are you'll still get an okay video and you'll get everything in focus. But like I've seen it even on like TikTok and stuff of like, oh my God, like the stuff on his website didn't correlate to this. And like it was all out of focus. And it went viral. It had like hundreds of thousands of likes. And like she did like reply videos and stuff. It just didn't really get to know the videographer. And I feel like for me, like I will not book somebody just based on like going text. Like we have to either get on a phone call, but I prefer video chat, just see if we're the right fit too. So as you know, start to do weddings, maybe at just like a higher quality and stuff, you start to want to see if you guys are the right fit with the couple. Not just I'll take on anybody. It's just if you're the right fit and your vision aligns with mine, first of all, I'm going to want to go to your wedding and do everything. But if you love my work too, it's going to be like this harmony. Yeah. You know, where it's really hard just when you start out, you just take everything. But once you start to really get the ball rolling, you get to couples that have the same vision as you and the videos turn out better too. So it's like your work gets better too.
100%.
And now you're traveling the world, going to Italy, going to the West Coast. Yeah. How did you get into shooting destination weddings? And like, what are some tips for someone who wants to get into shooting destination weddings?
Yeah, I mean, so it's so funny. So this is like something I'm really trying to focus on too, just like a couple of destination weddings a year. I was just talking to my buddy, Sunlit Films. He's in Hawaii. I met him at this videography like seminar, and he wants to do a New York wedding. I want to do a Hawaiian wedding. So we're going to give each other a wedding. So it's like, you know, you have to understand that somebody in Hawaii, New York is a destination wedding. Or we pass every day. We're like, I don't want to go to New York to film a wedding. They want,
or Philly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely not Philly.
Yeah.
But shout out all our Philly clients.
So they want the buildings. There's no buildings in Hawaii, man. It's just all palm trees and waves. Yeah. So he's like, I want the cool shadows on the buildings. I want like this. So it's a destination one to him. And for him, Hawaii is obviously so beautiful, but for me, there's nothing like that in Jersey. Like going to like Point Pleasant, you know, like it's not the same at all. So networking with other people that kind of have a similar vision. So if they're double booked, you might, have to take a slight price cut to meet that person's, price. Yeah. But now you have a destination wedding in your portfolio. So you have to think about like even somebody in Ireland, like we have Jersey, like people want to go to New York really bad. So if you get an inquiry, you just swap with them. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is just kind of, doing things a little bit cheaper at first to get that portfolio underneath you. And then just seeing it as an opportunity. Like I'm still doing that even though I'm pretty much fully booked even for next year. Since I need to do business write-offs and stuff like that, sometimes I'll do like, in more of a stylized shoot just to get a certain look I want for like a couple that I want to do in the future. Like 100%. Amalfi Coast is on my bucket list. I haven't done that yet. Yeah. So it's like I would 100% do a shoot there. So I think you need to think as a wedding filmmaker of like, what do I want to shoot and showcase it on your website? Yeah.
I think that's like one of the most important things that like people kind of forget about in this industry. It's like, well, I don't have anything to show for it. It's like, you can. Yeah, you might have to sacrifice some of your time a little bit, sacrifice the money that's coming into your pocket, but there's everything there's so many opportunities out there to shoot. It was like the other day, like I wanted to do a watch video, and like I literally just put time aside to do that, and then everyone's like, oh, did you do this for them? Are you gonna send it to them? And it's like, yeah, well now I have it in my portfolio that if someone's like, we have a watch company and we love a 15-second ad, it's like, boom, it's right here for you. Like, we can recreate it for you.
Yeah, you got to make the opportunity happen to yourself. Even how successful you are, if you see that there's value in it, like for certain couples too, like if I know, I mean, the first time I went to Italy, their wedding was in Florence, but they were just traveling Italy before that. So I took 5 days out of my time. They paid for all the travel and stuff for those extra 5 days for the wedding because I saw their vision and I really liked the couple. And now it's like this sick, like travel, like Italy film where I followed them. And I saw the value in it, you know, versus somebody where it's like, no, I have to get paid $3,000 a day just to follow you. There's no way they would have ever gone for that. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And since I did that, I've landed a bunch more Italy weddings because I saw the value in it. And it's like a lot of people, it depends what you're going for though. Like if you just want money, you could just stay in Jersey. Like you could do 2 or 3. But like for me, it's like that European look is like something I really enjoy, and I'm at the point where I want to travel to. So I think it's just everybody's different. You got to think about your own goals and what you want to hit.
Yeah,
you know.
And I think it's really important too. Yeah, it's important to do like the cheaper work, but once you have that in your portfolio, I think you have to price yourself strategically, because if you price yourself too low, it just fucks up the entire market for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, there's always going to be people that do it for cheaper, right? Yeah. And it's like, again, like even I, you know, did it. I'm just like pay for my travel. I mean, they paid, you know, for the wedding day and stuff, but like the days before I saw the value in it. And there's going to be even people with me where I'm like, I hit my goals for that year that will do it because that couple was right. And now it's like ever since it landed me so much more going back to Italy, which I really enjoy. So, you know, it's you got to think about your own goals and like go from there. Like I worked with this other photographer recently, and like I was like, hey, do you ever like go out to Italy and stuff? He's like, yeah, I get inquiries for all. He's like, I don't want to do it anymore. But he has 2 kids and he's 38 now, and like he makes a killing around here, and he doesn't want to do that anymore. So it's like, it sounds really cool to do destination weddings, but it's just also a certain time in my life where it makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? Everybody has different goals. It's like, I was talking to this other photographer too, and it's like the husband, he works full time and makes enough money for everyone, so she could start doing higher end weddings. Yeah. Because you can't do higher end weddings because it's a waiting game. But if you already have an income to fall back on, like, you know, like your partners, then you could start charging money. And now she's charging like $8-9 grand a wedding, like easily. But she couldn't just do that starting off because you need an income to fall behind. So I feel like a lot of stuff in this industry is subjective of like where you want to hit. Cause like, I feel like a lot of courses are like how to book this client, how to book, and it's just, it's not realistic. Like what if that person, you know, had all this money saved up, or they have another income to fall back on, and then I could charge 10 grand too and do, you know, maybe only 6 or 7 weddings, but then it's kind of like risky to just like play that waiting game. Yeah. Where if I had something to fall back on, you know, I would do that.
That's why it's important to like, you can see what everyone else is doing, how they're going about their business, but at the end of the day, it's like, what are you going to be happy with? Yeah. What are your goals and aspirations and things? Because, you know, people might look at you like, oh, he's traveling. He went to Florence, and oh, that's so cool. I mean, like we have people sometimes like, give us shit for not, you know, we didn't tell them to come to a shoot, but it's not always what it's chalked up to be. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's shoots where, you know, we might be taking a hit on something because we want to have, it's like the same thing, like having something to show for it. Yeah.
I feel like the value and opportunity has to be there. And like, you know, it kind of has a polarizing effect too. Like there's some couples that are like, oh my God, you're in Italy. And like, I have this one couple, it's like I returned like a month later ago, and she was like bragging to all the girls. And like the whole day was just like, oh yeah, Matt shoots in Italy. So it's like, it does have some type of pull, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I put myself in that situation where I'm like, you know what, I think this would complement my work and style very well.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's definitely cool, but again, like there's people that don't do it, there's people that do it.
Yeah.
I just had an inquiry to go to Spain, but I'm already booked. And
Send it over my way.
right. I was like, that would have been really cool. So, you know, I think it depends on everybody's. People don't talk about financials. It's just like this like iffy subject in the industry. But like,
oh my God, yeah.
you know, the reason this person is charging so much money is maybe they do mentorship and a course, and they have that to fall back on. And yeah, you could charge $15K, but it's hard to get there, you know, because everyone is always thinking like, how can I raise my price? And it's like, you don't know what the person already has to be able to get that stream of like, it takes momentum to start to charge that much money in this industry.
How many weddings do you think you've done?
When I was freelancing, I was doing...
Just like total.
Oh, man. I started in 2016. It's 2023. How many years is that?
7.
7. So, I don't know. Well over 500-600.
And what do you think when you had your own... You recently got married. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And how did that have changed your opinion on your own wedding? And like, how did your wedding kind of play out too?
Yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of couples actually, they love that approach where I'm like, hey, I got married and, you know, this is what I saw. For me, it was like the same approach of like how kind of I run my business of like, I just want people that will do a good job and just get me candidly and just like give me a nice product. And I wanted to just be about us on the wedding day. So it's like, that's how I wanted it versus like this huge production. I'm like, I know you guys are talented and stuff, but like it was in the middle of summer and super hot. It was really hot that day. So it's like we took breaks and stuff. I feel like if it was like this huge production, I just wouldn't enjoy the wedding day as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Were you jaded towards even having a wedding, or were you like, fuck it, I'm just gonna have a wedding because I...
Looking back at it, you know, and this is what a lot of couples do. It's because of family members where they do it locally. I wish initially we want to do a destination wedding in Ireland. But just because of COVID and stuff, and at the time Ireland had like all these restrictions, it kind of swayed us away from it. And then things started to open up in Jersey, and there was less actually restrictions here. So we booked a venue. It was still awesome. Like we had like close friends and like family that were able to make it, like grandparents. But we kind of swayed off based off like family and friends, and that's kind of what happens sometimes. And, you know, I feel like a destination wedding would have been more of like us as a couple of like what we wanted. So I think, you know, couples should like really just do exactly what they want.
Yeah.
You know, because there's going to be even people you invite that like you won't show up. And like, you know,
I just went to a destination wedding in Mexico, and
the people that want to be there for you will be there, especially if it's destination, and it's going to feel like they're your people.
It's like an understanding when you do a destination wedding too. Like you gotta understand that it's a destination. Like you're asking people to travel a long distance away to go somewhere for you. So like I remember the one I went to, like the best man was like stuck in Florida because like the airport got flooded out.
Oh wow.
He showed up like the morning of the wedding, and like the groom is like, you know, it's adding on to his stress, but at the same time he's like, it is what it is. Like you kind of have to have that mentality doing a destination wedding. Like we're here because we want to be here.
It's a lot of like chance. Like the ones I've done in Italy, they're not going to Italy before to plan it unless they have a lot of money, right? So it's like they're just banking on like, you know, a wedding coordinator that knows the area with the food. They're not tasting the food. Like a lot of these Jersey, like New York, they're testing the food beforehand. You're seeing the space. They're not doing that. Like, so it's like just really trusting the process more and just kind of going with it. And I feel like those couples are more chill if something does go wrong, because like you're in another country, you're in their culture now. So it's like you have to adapt to that and just trust that like this is how they're going to deliver the food. This is, you know, the wine that they drink. So it's more, I feel like those couples are more carefree. And if something happens on the wedding day, it's like, yeah, you're trying to make it be perfect, but it's just like you're thousands of miles away from what you're used to. So you got to let the chips fall where they should.
Definitely.
It's just a completely different approach than closer weddings, where I actually see couples more stressed out, because it's like, now it's like you have to cater to everybody. It's more of like, I see that more. They're trying to cater to their 200 guest list of like, you know, which there's nothing wrong with that, but like I feel like it's just more of you're trying to cater to everyone else versus you two getting married.
Yeah, you need to do it for yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and it's hard to do that, especially when you have grandparents that can't travel. Like for us, like I wanted my grandparents there; they couldn't go to Ireland, so it also came down to that.
You got married at Perona, right?
Yeah, the
It
refinery.
was just at Perona.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. It was just like super easy, like laid back, like
Yeah.
They yelled at him for wearing a black T-shirt.
really.
It was funny because like JT and I mean, like for the most part, like maybe I'll toss on a blazer sometimes, but it's coming off anyways.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing my normal wedding fit. I've worn it to, I mean, Perona Farm's a really nice place. But
Yeah.
been to nicer places, and
Yeah, it's very casual. It's,
So-
yeah.
JT and I, we're literally like Perona's good too because like they'll have someone there to make sure you're on schedule with things.
Yeah.
And perfect, like no issue with anything. And as soon as the ceremony was done, the planner or whatever of Perona Farms comes up to us. It's like, hey, you guys have any weddings booked here the rest of the year? And JT and I look at each other like, oh, maybe he wants to book us for something. Or,
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, yeah, so there's like a dress code. He's like,
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
and I was like, you were with us all day long.
Yeah.
And you had the chance to ask us if we had
Yeah.
anything else to wear. Like I did too in my car. Like I always bring like a backup.
Oh yeah,
sweater
just
and,
in
like,
case. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, that's so fun.
There
But the
was-
couples could have
I
cared less.
think it was the Westmount. If you didn't wear like a blazer or jacket, you weren't allowed to go to cocktail hour.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it's just like
Yeah.
it was just like this whole thing. So it's I think dress code like weddings. It's just like you mentioned, like it's good to have a jacket. It just depends what you're going for. Like I always try to ask the couple. I'm like, are you trying to go for like black tie or
Yeah.
just like is it more casual?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's really hard when you're in a suit and it's hard to be.
Moving around.
Yeah, you got to be agile.
I'm the guy with the gimbal.
Yeah,
all day,
so it's
like,
a lot of moving.
We were in Philly, and I'm like, I must have burned like
Sweating.
2,000 calories
in the middle of the summer. Trying to be creative when it's hot and wearing
Yeah.
a suit is really hard. So like during like the
Exactly.
portrait session, sometimes I'll just
Yeah.
and then
shirtless.
throw it back on once we go inside.
That's why like I like look like I'm like kind of looking around and I'm like we're a team. We're dressed in the same exact thing. Like it's almost like what do you expect? Like,
Yeah.
we're doing some like photographer like. Yeah, like obviously it's a little bit easier to dress up nicer.
Yeah.
Even that day I was upset because the photographer wasn't. She was female, but like she wasn't wearing anything different than what we were wearing. It was just
they
like
probably can't say anything to a female because they can't wear like a
they couldn't
suit.
tell whether it was like
Right?
a nice
It's just
fit
like
or not a
somewhat
nice fit.
like dress shoot, whatever.
Exactly.
But you know what's crazy? I started to notice when I was freelance, I'm like, why are these DJs stylizing on every videographer?
Yeah.
Like they're all in suits. They all look like
But they're all inside, cold.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So like I started. I mean, especially for my own company now, it's like I always wear a suit and stuff
Yeah.
for the formalities, just like showing up. And it's not just to look a certain way for a venue. It's so I blend in to
Yeah.
be more candid.
Yeah.
Because I actually look like a wedding guest.
Definitely.
Now. If I just have a small camera, I could hide it real quick. It's black.
Definitely.
My suit's black. Hide it.
Yeah.
Now I kind of blend in with the crowd, get more candid shots. So for me, it's like, yeah, you do look better and stuff, but like
Yeah.
you also, once you start to blend in with everybody, you're gonna get more candid shots.
Yeah. No,
So it's something to think about too.
100%.
keep that in
Yeah.
mind.
You want to hop into rapid fire?
Definitely.
All right.
Rapid fire.
Yeah, so we do a segment on our show where we just spit some rapid fire questions at you.
Okay.
All right, you
All
go
right.
first.
Favorite Jersey wedding venue?
Ooh. Batello. It's in Jersey City. I'm there a lot. It's overlooking New York City. It's great.
What's the best wedding shoes to wear?
That's so subjective. Clark's.
For videographers.
I'd say Clark's. They're pretty good. Yeah.
Best meal that you've been served?
Ooh.
That's always like a.
It might be a
hit or
Batello
miss.
too, because Batello it was a restaurant first.
Ooh.
So restaurants kind of and then switch into wedding venues. They know where it's at with the
And
food.
you say you do work there often,
A lot.
so they like. They
hook
they
you
probably
up.
make sure like we gotta make
No,
sure.
it's
it
like
gets
it's you know, it's so funny. There's this page. It's called like something vendor meals. I don't know the exact thing, but
We
they
gotta
submit
post.
to it, and it's like people like the worst because it's like sometimes even though the couple's paying for the vendor meals, you don't get
Oh,
what
you're
the
getting,
guests
like,
are getting,
the
even though you're
scraps.
considered a guest.
Yeah.
So it's like there's they'll give you the cheapest option to save money.
Yeah.
What's the worst meal you got?
Ooh, I don't know. Oh, it was one down the shore, but it was only like pork and it just wasn't cooked at all. It's just unedible.
Oh.
And it's like I always tell like vendors and stuff, like you eat during cocktail hour because like the dinner is hit or miss if you've never been to the venue. Like cocktail hour is the time to like get your food in.
Joe munches down.
I'm munching
For sure. You have to.
I've been working all day.
This dude, by the time dancing's going on,
You need
he's
to take at
knocked
least
out
10 minutes out because like you don't know if the food's going to be good during dinner.
Stuff your face.
And they might have the toast during dinner and then your food's cold.
Yep.
So
100%. What was the first camera that you shot with?
the first Sony A6000.
Top 3 wedding photographers in your opinion?
Top 3. Let's see.
I like how Matt doesn't give a fuck about it. We had a wedding DJ on here and he wouldn't break. He'd be like, "Oh, I work with too many people."
There is a lot of good people. I'd say the person I got mentored by, Philip White, he's in the UK. He would probably be, just because I got a lot of inspiration from him.
Yeah.
And just, that type of style.
Vanessa Joy. No, I'm just kidding.
I worked with her. She's great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like people that have like a certain style and just don't shoot like everybody else.
Yeah.
Those are the people I like. I really like photographers that there's a couple that I'm starting to work with. There's a girl named Tess in Philly, and she shoots some on film too. It's like I just feel like film and just like giving it like a different type of look and just
100%.
kind of like breaking the boundaries a little bit. Those are the people that I like versus just like super clean and like staged and posed. I like people that like where you can see like character in the imagery and like they're not afraid to shoot something out of focus and like try to tell a story that way. I'm trying to think who else.
One more.
I don't know.
You don't know.
It's all good. We can move on to the next
Yeah,
one.
I feel like 2 is good though.
Like what do you pull inspiration from?
Actually, not other wedding filmmakers. I don't like watching wedding films. A lot of photography work, actually. Just seeing how they shoot it. I feel like that's more important than anything. Mostly photography and like not even because like movies, it's just like set design and stuff. You can't control that. Yeah. So I look at it. I'm like the lighting's really nice. And it's like you get inspiration, but you might be a little bit disappointed when the room doesn't look anything like that. So I feel like photographers I get the most inspiration from. And like, a lot of there's Peter Lindbergh. He used to shoot a lot of like black and white stuff. I started to like buy his like books and stuff. A lot of fashion books I get inspiration from. A lot of like the Dior like photo shoots are really just like interested in how they do it and just like how they're just like it doesn't have to be a perfect photo. It's just there's it could have either depth, dimension to it. It could be out of focus. It could just be like half the face, like just stuff like that versus of just like looking at the clean like stuff. For me, it's like I like to see photographers that like to shoot through glass, reflections, shoot through foreground and stuff like that. I don't like the stuff where it's just like pose, look at each other, hold their arm and look at each other. Like I can't relate to that anymore because I feel like there's just nothing to it. So yeah, I'd say a lot of, as of recently, more fashion editorial type stuff and just like I worked with this girl. Her name is I guess number 3, Kelly Taub.
Hey.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but she's a fashion photographer in New York, and she dabbles into weddings. And I worked with her, and the bride found her individually and me individually based on our styles. Yeah, and just the way she sees light, and she shoots on film too. Yeah, it was just so eye-opening to see them shoot differently because they're not in the wedding world. They're in this fashion editorial. They're trying to give it a certain look. And she's gotten featured in Vogue, and like she does all this fashion like with these actors and stuff, and her perspective on things are just so different. And it just made me look into like more like, you know, designer, like fashion shoots, because it's just like they're trying to make you feel something versus like that's their job as like, you know, an editorial fashion photographer.
What's one thing a wedding videographer shouldn't do? That's a no.
I know one.
What's yours?
Yeah, what's yours?
I mean, I'm just thinking of when we were on a wedding and the photographer formatted her card right after the ceremony. And her first thing was to go beeline straight to the mom that was next to the groom
and tell the mom.
It was like, I just formatted all of the pictures. But then,
so if something goes wrong, you take it in, and then you got to think about it first and reevaluate. Like, I've never had that happen, but like that's something you just don't do.
She got him back too, and like she literally spent like 2 hours just like, she came up to us, she was like, this has probably never happened to you before, and like, okay, probably not.
You
but
don't
like,
take your cards out. You make sure you have cards that work the whole entire time, because like even just like hot swapping cards, misplacing. I've seen people do that.
Yeah.
So I think just have enough storage. I mean, those are just like the basic fundamentals. But that's. Can you repeat the question? What was it?
So what's one thing a wedding videographer should do?
I really dislike on camera dance floor lights.
Oh, that's
Use
the
a
worst.
light stand.
Oh, people do that.
Oh yeah, on top the on camera lights.
I saw it recently. A photographer had it the whole time.
That's so.
And it was like, it had like a green tint to it, and like she would just come by and it would create shadows and stuff. I'm like, I had 2 lights up and it was perfect.
Yeah.
You know, to give it a certain look, but like, on camera lights, I just feel like it's very.
There's no depth.
It's very like dance floor club.
Yeah, it's almost like the on-person like interviews style type of things.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cringe. I mean, there's so much, but like, it's just like, I don't want to give away like too many like secrets. But like, some people are just like okay with like bad lighting, and just like, obviously you can't control it really during the ceremony. It's just, it is what it is if you're outside. But like the times you can control it, for like the first dance and toast, like I feel like some people just like don't care about their lighting as much, and like I feel like those are the things you could actually change to like enhance your films. Just like bad lighting, and like I feel like during like the shots when the bride's in the dress, there's a lot of times where you can control the natural light, and people will just have like the overhead lights on, and there'll be garbage in the background, or like a Sprite bottle, and they'll just like shoot it, and you'll see in the film. It's like, for me, it's like I have a little bit of OCD with that. I'm like, if my background looks bad, I'm going to change that if I can control it.
Yeah.
That's why he shoots primes.
Yeah, and that's true. You could frame things out easier with primes.
Yeah. I hate the freaking when videographers have the roller tripod.
Oh, that's old school. That is super old school.
I'm like, don't be rolling that shit across the fucking dance floor.
That's
piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Just in general?
In general.
Yeah.
Probably just where you're at is probably okay, and don't be so hard on yourself. You know, because everyone has certain goals, and it's just like, I feel like, you know, as of recently, like I hit my goals already, and as far as sales, previous to my last sales, and like I've been, you know, traveling and stuff, and sometimes I think I'm still not where I want to be, but like to like so many other people that are like, you're like amazing, like all that stuff. So it's like, I feel like even right now, sometimes I could be too hard on myself with things, and it's like trying to chase perfection. So if I was younger, maybe just like being like, okay, you're doing everything right, you know, and you know, but at the same time, it's like this balance of like, if you become too stagnant, then how do you grow? And it's like, but sometimes just like taking a step back and being like, work isn't everything, you know what I mean? And just trying to enjoy life.
Proper balance.
Yeah.
100%.
Work, and it's not, it's hard because you're creating your own business, you're creating your own hours. Exactly. And it's like, at first you're just like work, and you start to forget about everything. Like I used to freelance so many weddings, I didn't have weekends. And all of a sudden, all my close friends that work in 9 to 5s, they want to hang out on the weekend. I didn't realize I was, you know, not hanging out with them, because I was just like, my weekends were gone. So really just taking back and realize that the money will come, and just like enjoying life. Yeah.
And when, if people want to book you, if couples want to book you or see any more of your work, where can they find more about you?
Yeah. So my company, it's Mad Alt Films. My website too. On Instagram and stuff. Just reach out in the contact form. and then see if we have your date open. That's it.
Awesome. And is there a quote that you want to leave us off with to that camera?
I guess from the person I got mentored by, Philip White, he said, you can't paint a masterpiece when you're wearing handcuffs.
Matt Alt, everybody.
Cool.
Family. Oh, that was good.